I'm the trustee for this district, and I'll allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Please.
Good evening. I think I met most of you walking in, but my name is Adam Johnson. I'm the appointed trustee for the City of Las Vegas, but I work really closely with Trustee Henry. Even though this is not City of Las Vegas, some of our district overlaps, and so I'm here tonight to support.
Thank you, trustee.
And I'm trustee for the City of North Las Vegas, appointed, Isaac Barone. I'm also a councilman, of course, for Ward 1 in the City of North Vegas. So trustee, councilman, you can go ahead and just refer to me as the crusty. And believe me, after 30 years of teaching, I'm very crusty. And of course, we will slow down a little bit to allow our ASL interpreter to catch up to us, right?
Thank you, trustee.
Hey, hey, hey.
So I do want to share that we do have a Spanish translator, and we also have an ASL interpreter in attendance and available for everyone. So I'll make sure that I don't speak too quickly. Thank you so much. Right now, it's important for me I really want to take a moment of silence. We did lose a student yesterday within our district, and I just want to make sure that we pay respect to that young individual. Thank you so much. All right, so we are right at 6:05. For this meeting, I really wanted to be an open forum. You did come to us. We really do want to hear from you. Any questions that you have. We also had some questions that were pre-submitted, but it's important for us to hear from you who did come. So we'll take some questions here. We'll pull some that were submitted, and we'll go from there. So it's always important to share like what our roles as trustees are, because oftentimes we get a lot of emails and questions about things that are truly operational, things that are human resources, personnel related. And I always want to remind everyone that we have one employee in the district, and that's our superintendent, right? And there are things that do fall under operations. So it doesn't mean that we don't care. We absolutely care. We are here to make the best decisions on behalf of our school district, but also our students, all of our staff members, our families. That's important. But as our role, we have that fiscal oversight. We also are here to hold our superintendent accountable, but also support them. And to me, that's like our major roles. Did either one of you want to add to that?
No. Hey, I'm always happy to follow your lead. It's always good to, of course, hear the sound off, from the people that we're serving, whether it's the public or our employees as well.
All right.
And then the other thing I'll add is we have one employee, and her responsibility is to kind of create the vision for the district. And so in order to do that, she has to be able to hear from all of you. So we have a teammate here from the engagement department, Kelsey, who's going to ask one question of all of you so you can provide some feedback, and then we will get into the larger part of the night.
Right now, we want to hear from you, so make sure you sign into the QR code and answer the question. And also, we'll get started with some questions here shortly. For now, we'll make sure we take one question per audience member, if that's okay. As I said before, we did have some questions that were pre-submitted, so we want to make sure that we answer some of those as well. So I thank you. It looks like most of you are pretty wrapped up. Is there anyone that wants to start or have any questions?
CCSD teacher. I've been a librarian for 26 years. My friend Robin and here, I run Read Freely. We are a nonprofit organization that's committed to anti-censorship. I think all three of you know that. So coming before you, probably before the beginning of the new semester, is going to be some changes to policy 5139 as well as 6150. These are an attempt to whitewash them and take the diversity and inclusion out of them. And so I'm sure, because there's a block of votes on the board, I understand that only one of you has the vote, that it is going to in fact pass, since we know that the board has been taken over by fascism. So what my question is will and how do you plan to hold accountable your one employee, Superintendent Ebert, who brought these forward in the first instance and had working groups to destroy 25 years of my work and other librarians that came before us with 6150, the work of people like Akiko Cooks at No Racism 1865 and the Black, Hispanic, and Asian community here in Las Vegas fought, well, for 400 years for that language. How are you going to hold your colleagues who vote in favor of this whitewashing and anti-DEI language, as well as your one employee? How are you going to hold them accountable, or are you going to? Thank you.
Now, thank you very much. And our librarians, of course, they're an integral part of our schools. There's a lot of research that shows that the highest performing schools are the ones that have the best libraries. That's me. I'm a Crash Knight. Those of you who know who Dr. Stephen Krashen is know exactly what I'm talking about. So we of course, I know I and the members that I work with, we know just how important our school libraries are. Now, when it comes to individual choices, well, we can't speak for anybody else other than ourselves, but I can say this. I know that our superintendent, she is committed to keeping the mission of the Clark County School District first and foremost. And we have made a commitment to respecting diverse and equity, of course, in our school district. Now, when it comes to individual things within this right, remember, if it's up for revision, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get passed, but it will come up for discussion, right? And before we throw everything out the window, right? I know you're looking at one person who actually does believe in a constitutional form of government, and I most definitely will respect the law and follow it. We not only have our own district policy, but we also have state policies we follow, and of course, our national policy. Again, it would be inappropriate for me to state how anyone's going to come out either way on this right. But I think that the safest thing to say is you have several people who are on this board who are dedicated to diversity, to inclusion, and to making sure that these voices that a lot of people fought for a long time don't get stamped out.
Thank you so much. And for me, it's like it's always going to be important that we honor diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, even if they try to do away with it, it's always important. Like, we have to make sure that we have respectable spaces and safe spaces for all children to learn. And that's including Black and brown children. And then for libraries, I thank you all for everything that you do. I also serve on the library board as well, but I'm here as a CCSD trustee. Yeah, I can't say, how I'm gonna vote. I know you said that there's a lot. I haven't talked to anyone when you do that. But I am, I'm a very huge fan of all students having access to the reading material that they want to read. Thank you.
I don't want to reiterate what my colleagues said. They said it so well, but I will say, you asked about accountability. The way I think about accountability is through the questions that you ask, and you have to understand how somebody is going to ensure that all students still see themselves in the books, how all students feel welcome in their libraries, and to make sure that we still have policies that ensure that parents who may not want certain books being read by their children are honored as well, because we serve all children not just the children that might align with our ideologies. And so, in order to do that, we have to ask the questions: how do you make sure that if a parent doesn't want their child to read a specific book, how do we honor that parent while also ensuring that every single child has the opportunity to read a book where they can see themselves in the literature? And it becomes it's the superintendent's job to make that policy so that it supports both sides. And so our responsibility is to ask the questions: well, if I am a child who's in a household that doesn't want my child to do that, what's the policy that ensures that doesn't happen? And if I'm a parent of a child who does want their child to do that, how do I make sure my child's reflective of these? And so our questions back and forth with the superintendent and making sure that the policy she puts in front of us honors both sides in the way that we have to hold her accountable to it. And then checking back up with it. So as we talk to parents, as we talk to librarians, as we talk to students in schools, if they're finding that they're not being honored, we get to come back to the superintendent and say, this is the feedback that we've heard, this is the information that we have based on our community involvement, which is why these meetings themselves are so important, right? Like us being able to, because what we can do, we talk to principals often, we don't always get all of the information. Sometimes it's a single person telling their single side. So for us, it is about making sure that we have multiple people telling us these are the experiences that we're having inside the schools, and then we can then hold the superintendent accountable in our everyday meetings or bi-weekly meetings that we have with her.
Again, thank you for your question. Is there anyone else that has a question here?
How you guys doing tonight? My name is Coach Knox. My simple question is, Ms. Henry talked about this a long time ago. There's a program they got. It's called Register My Athlete. This program is developed in New York, not Nevada, okay? Now, the folks in this program will bring it to our kids. Okay, once you as a mother or you as a father say I'm a single parent in a household, the next thing that's gonna come up is, do you have custody papers? Now let me ask you guys a question. How many people in this room walking around have custody papers? That's the problem. So a lot of our kids do not get a chance to play football. Okay? I worked with Smyster Middle School with a black girls football coach. I had 22 girls. 8 of those girls did not play because they could not get cleared by RMA for that one question. And all I want to stress to you guys is you might want to look into that program and see is it right for Nevada, is it right for our kids. I think the program, the concept is outdated, and a lot of coaches will agree with you that it needs to go bye-bye. And here's my next thing. If a kid can register into a school at CCSD, how can RMA overrule CCSD? And I had to come ask that question because I've been coaching the community for 20, 34 years, and it always come up. I don't care if you coach in high school or middle school, it's always been a problem wherever I went. So guys, it's just, you might want to look at the program, and then we're outsourcing our money. That money should be in our state. We're paying New York, I already investigated. And then it says it wants to fast track. But it's fast track, why our kids can't play. And that's the problem. Why is there a shortage in football? Sports is already on decline. We already know that. Now we got, it used to be 120 boys in Cheyenne. Now it's down because kids are already not playing, they got a tip though, they're doing other things. Now we got RMA telling them they can't play sports. It's an outdated concept. I just want you guys to know. Look into it yourself. Do investigative work. I've been doing it for years. And a lot of coaches across the board. And even my actor, he'll tell you, you can't stand it either. It's an outdated concept. Thank you for over here.
I appreciate the comment and the question. So part of what governs the sports at CCSD, even though we are a very large district, we still are under the authority of the Nevada Interscholastic Athletic Association, and they have put that rule in place for the entire state. And so we do have a member of our board who is a liaison to that board. And so part of what we can do is certainly share that with, so it's Linda Cavazos, who is our representative. And then we also have principals who serve on the board for NIA as well. So while we can't tell them what to do, we can share the concern, and we certainly can pass your contact information along as well. Because this is the first I've heard of being this big of an issue. but it doesn't mean you're the only person that's having the issue. So we want to make sure that we're able to get you directly in contact with Linda Cavazos, who again represents the CCSD board at the NIA, and then the NIA makes the decisions for the entire state as it relates to why they decided to use register my athlete versus something else.
And thank you so much for your question, but also all you do in our community. We appreciate you. Is there anyone else that has a question here? Yes.
I'm a middle school teacher here at CCSD. My concern is, what are we going to address, like the academic gaps, specifically reading and math? Because what I'm noticing is that a lot of our kids are not reading on grade level, they're not writing on grade level, they're not doing math on grade level, and they're able to get out of middle school and make it to high school without those necessary skills in place. So what are we going to do to address that? Are we retaining kids? What's happening with that?
Thank you so much for your question. I mean, of course, for us, outcomes for all students is so very important, right? So thank you for that question. Just making sure that we are being mindful of our policies, of the curriculums that's being used in our schools. Also, I really feel that it's important that we do increase family and community engagement, so families know what other resources exist, even when they do get their students test scores. Like, how can we work together to make sure that your student is improving? And you mentioned something about retention. And that's something that I don't want to speak to something that I'm not well versed on, and I don't know if any other trustees want to take it.
I don't think we have a quick answer to this. COVID exposed every weakness that our society had, not just in education, in public health, and everything that we could think of, we got exposed. Okay, it showed just what the variables are. Coming back from COVID, I don't know if you guys know this. I spent 30 years as a teacher, the last 20 in Rancho High School. And we had, students who were in our MED program who couldn't do first year algebra, which is actually a bad thing because we have a pretty high caliber math program. Sorry, I snuck in. I didn't see you move in. Anyhow, we'll get back to your. That's your grandbabies? Oh God. Well, okay. I'm digressing. We're coming back. It's coming back slow. We know that the scores are coming back, but we're nowhere near where we want to be, right? And I don't think we have any one set answer. We see pockets of initiatives that are being done in schools, but that's not enough. I think the superintendent's plan here is to address these things in particular. One idea that she has is to increase the amount of school days, right? Become more effective. If she does that, there's going to be several, things to get addressed with that. Yeah, have more school day. I'm also, I like the idea of having more school day, but I also like the idea of actually having more quality school day. It's not going to be just the idea of having kids here at school. If they're not actually being challenged with more programs, they'll lift them up. That's an issue. I had the good fortune of attending my granddaughter's parent-teacher conference because mom's couldn't make it, she's busy working, so girlfriend and I went, right? And I was kind of stunned because since it was no one was supposed to be there because they had all the parent-teacher conferences. When I arrived at school, there weren't that many parents there, and I was actually pretty shocked because we were there. I didn't see that many more parents. I saw one poor lady. She was coming out with her kids. She had 5 children. They looked like they were very well nourished, very well taken care of. She was there. You can tell she was there to make a difference. But unless all the parents are showing up like online after school or on weekends, right? I'm asking myself, where are the parents at? And again, we have other things we have to address. Last year I deliberately asked to go read at one of these several schools for Nevada Reading Week, just compare the educational experience there compared to my school in Las Vegas. And I'll tell you what, we're one school district, but it's two totally different, totally different experiences between the school in Summerlin and my neighborhood school. There were parents all over the school that I won't name, but the parent and parental involvement there was incredible. And you can just feel the different vibe from the Summerlin school compared to my school. Even though the school in my neighborhood is actually a pretty good school, it's a 4-star school, we're talking about two different educational experiences. So we have a long way to work back, but that's part of the plan that the superintendent's putting together. And I'm going to say just cautiously, I think we're on the right path. We do see the scores going up, but we have a long way to go. And we do see schools gaining more stars, but I think there's a lot more to education than just the stars.
And I also feel that it's important because we do have schools that are making gains.
That word out.
I'm sorry, I talk too much. I just sucked the energy right out of that sucker.
All right. We do have schools that are making gains. We're always looking at data, and I do feel that it's important for us to replicate what's going well at other schools. And so I do hear you when you say it's different, the different areas of the town that you go to, but it shouldn't be, right? And so we need to do a better job of that collectively. And I know Trustee Johnson has some things to say.
It was funny, just a quick anecdote, and I'll get into my response, but we got through this training a couple of weeks ago, and then we get a coach. And so the coach says, they provide you what your feedback is. My feedback is, too quiet in the meetings, you need to say more. And I was like, why are you talking? Like, you only talk when it comes to academics. So that's one thing I care about a lot, all the things, but this is the thing I care about the most. So I really appreciate this question. I've just been thinking about this a couple of days ago. We asked you about the strategic plan. But before we get to the strategic plan, the superintendent is being held accountable to what is she doing between now and then. And so one of the things she's put a lot of emphasis on, she has 4 very specific areas where she's going to put her energy and effort. One is going to be early literacy. First is pre-K. We need to make sure there are more pre-K seats that are available, more pre-K seats that are there. You get to make sure the students are in your system earlier, you can support them earlier. Second is early literacy. So we talked about our literacy scores right away. It is a focus of the district right now to make sure that how we're looking at kindergarten, 3rd grade, making sure that by 3rd grade students are very much on track. I'm sure, Trustee Barone can tell you, if by the time they're in his classroom they have difficulty comprehending what they're reading, they're still trying to break down words, it's very difficult for them to get the concepts that he's trying to teach them, if in fact they have difficulty reading. So a focus on early literacy is happening right now. The other space is middle school mathematics. So what we saw in the district was that our K through 5, they do like this with their mathematics proficiency. 6 through 8, it comes back down, and then it becomes very difficult in high school. We have 2 years, she teaches 9th grade algebra and algebra 2. I'm sure she's seen in her classroom this challenging. If you've not had pre-algebra, you've not done it well, and you try to come into your 9th grade classroom to do that algebra 1, it's a different world. So focusing on 6th, 7th, 8th grade mathematics is going to be incredibly important, and superintendent is putting a lot of her energy and focus there. The last 2 spaces she's going to be putting energy and focus are in the career readiness spaces. So she wants to make sure that not just are we making sure that students are ready to leave high school and go to college if they want, but they have the skills to be career ready. So you asked about those early literacy, you asked about literacy and mathematics. She's putting energy and effort into it right now as she thinks about what her next 5 years is going to be. And then the other thing that we're going to, I think is going to be incredibly important as a board, we're asking what are the reporting metrics? How do we know that we're getting better every year? We need you to share with us pretty consistently. So we had a reporting system, but it was outdated, and so we would get information, but it was hard for us to determine are we actually making the gains that we thought we were, because the system was a little outdated. So we're excited because Superintendent Jesse Wilson is going to come to us actually this upcoming board meeting and talk about what the reporting system will be like. We can give them feedback on what we want to see, what type of benchmarks we want to see, so we can know that we're making the progress we want to make.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I just had a suggestion. The middle school teacher, as far, you're right, there is a gap, and I'm with you. You know, K to 5, they're going. They hit that 6 through, like 6, 7, and 8 in middle school, and it's almost like between development and all the new information they're taking in the classes, the actual math classes, it stumps them. And then you expect this child to just move forward to high school, which becomes harder. So to that, I would say I'm listening to you guys hashing this out, and I got the thinking is we do have schools who are doing really well. Our internal program is amazing, but we have schools where parents are working so that their kids can have a safe future, so they can't always be involved. So there's pockets where they need backup and they need more support. So my thought is that why not create, since we do have interventionists in the district, why not place emphasis in creating teams of interventionists that target, because you guys have all that data, all the lab testing, you guys have access to that, that target those schools and those groups of kiddos who are struggling. So, you know, it would look something like this. So it's also as an interventionist, you guys could put together, let's say, 3 to 5 teams. You would know because you know how many schools need it, but you could send them out and meet with the principal, meet with the educators. Where do you see the problem? And then talk about how that meeting like this with the actual school where you're having a one-on-one, getting to understand who the student is, where the problem is academically, and a little background of what their everyday environment is in the classroom. And then create the space. Not every student benefits from an elective. I do nothing with my kids who's learning computers, who's on a tablet, on a phone, on a computer at home, if he's failing math because he can't get it. You know what I mean? So, but if I know that the school says to me, your child struggles here, I'm talking to his teacher, and the teacher's saying, he's in 8th grade, he's about to go to high school, you have this big gap. He's not making it, she's not making it. I'm willing to pay parents are going to be going, okay, so how would that look? Well, we're going to take out, half an hour of their day, maybe change up on the elective and make that an elective. We have a team building 2, 3, 6 months down the line. Some kids may need the whole school year, but it enforces that knowledge and it helps the interventions come in. The teacher is aware of what the holes are. They get to understand where the holes lie, and the child can fill in that gap. And now they have the proper tools to move on to 9th grade. Once they hit high school, they're not dragging 3 years worth of frustration and lack of understanding. And honestly, self-esteem wise, I know self-esteem is an outdated word, but self-awareness, they're looking at themselves going, okay, it's not so scary. Kids have a lot to deal with as this. So I would suggest, that is my suggestion, create a team of interventions, multiple teams, and then close that gap. Because collectively speaking, we're not all on the same page. But we have some schools that are doing great. But the ones that are struggling, they need the backup. And that would be my suggestion on that. So, thank you.
Oh no, next question. And thank you. I want to make sure I said thank you.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. I didn't know if we were done or not. I was just getting ready. So I'm coming as a Clark County School District mom who just moved to the school district like 4 days before school started. So all of this is very new to us here. And I will say it is very different here in Las Vegas. And one thing to support what this woman was just speaking on, both of these teachers here, is where's the funding disconnect? Because at the beginning of the school year, it seemed like we were sold on, this is a largest school district, one of the largest school districts in the country, but there seems to be a funding disconnect with the electives or opportunities for kids where maybe programs were started at the beginning of the year and now all of a sudden have been cut. And I'm not sure if anybody else here I see some heads nodding, but programs that were happening either before school or after school, STEM programs, art programs, the news show for the kids at the school. So, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, I did approach my school's principal, and they mentioned that, of course, how we are blaming things on COVID, and then now that that COVID funding has been used up, you know, they had to make some adjustments. Okay, I can understand that a little bit. But then I heard some other comments with, oh, we get around, or the school district maybe receives around $6,300 a year per kid for the school, and that the county overestimated how many students were going to be enrolled at this particular school, or something along those lines. So maybe they lost 80 kids this year, which resulted in the loss of, you know, all of this funding to support the school. Here's my thing, why did they start these programs at the beginning of the year if they know that there wasn't enough funding to support them throughout the whole year? And what do we need to do, you know, having just moved here, this seems like I've gone to community events, it just seems like the money's here. So, you know, why aren't we engaging our community that's here? There's lots of wealth here, you know, and I'm just surprised to see that something like this is happening here in a city like Las Vegas. And what can we do to work together to prevent it from happening? I don't think it's right that our kids have to suffer, or another suggestion was, oh, we'll just change one of your electives. Well, she shouldn't have to give up an elective to do a club, or to be, you know, something extra. And I just think, you know, there's lack of resources in this town with after-school programs, before-school programs. These are what kids need to keep them safe, to keep them engaged, to experience other things. And what can we do together to help you guys get the point across? Because like sometimes a squeaky person, but if you feel like you're limited to what you can say or do, you know, then maybe we all need to speak up, when we all need to be upset about it and continue to speak up more about this, because it's just not fair to the kids, really. It's only hurting the kids.
I think I saw your question. You did submit the question.
I did.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I see. I want to recognize our former trustee involved in it, was in the audience, right? This is something that she addressed when she was on the board, and I also want to recognize our host here, Mr. Principal Nunez, right? Who, quite frankly, you know, he's done quite a bit here at Cheyenne. With his resources going up and down. It all has to do with enrollment. Each kid that comes into our school system is worth that person is worth a certain amount of dollars when it comes to funding from the state. And we have enough money right now to run our district, right? We're not flush with cash, but we can actually meet our everything that we need to make. But the problem is, we see a fluctuation between these schools, between the time that we have the end of the school year and the start of the new one. For instance, Mr. Nunez, how many students were you down at the beginning of the school year?
We've probably lost about 200 over the last 2 years.
200 over the last 2 years. That doesn't sound like a whole lot. It's actually devastating when it comes to the budget that's allotted to Cheyenne High School. Again, it doesn't sound, every kid that's out there that joins the school, they're worth a certain amount of money, right? And what happens is when that enrollment goes up and down, especially when it's going down, right? There has to be a shift that moves. I have a stat here. I just want to read it here to you, just to try to put things into bargain here. About 40% of our schools saw increased enrollment over spring predictions, and the rest, 6%, saw lower enrollment. So then what winds up happening is, whenever schools are predicted to have enrollment, they're allotted a certain amount of money here towards the end of the spring. But once after count day gets here, right, if they're short, if they don't have that enrollment, we have to switch the resources to the schools that actually do have increased enrollment. And what that means is, unfortunately, on the ground here, you might have teachers be surplus. Well, they're not budgeted. We're not firing teachers. What happens is sometimes teachers get moved to where they're needed. And if the enrollment has been, is now lower in some schools, those teachers have to move to places where you have equals enrollment in others. The money follows the student. So, you know, and the money follows the student to the school, those resources have to go where the student goes. And unfortunately, you know, we hear, oh, well, we blame things on budget cuts, but it's a little bit more involved in that. Ultimately, each principal, you know, at each school site, they're given a lot of discretion on how they are to run their school. They have to balance out. They're not allowed to run at a deficit. They are held accountable to making sure that their schools are run at the budget that they say they were going to be to. As part of how the school is accountable to the entire community. And sometimes that means that if you have a favorite, you know, you might have a young teacher who's at one school who people really love that person. But if that person has to be surplus to a school, then you have students who are, and parents who are up in arms. But we have to account. We have to be fiscally accountable to the public, right? And sometimes the building principals have to make very tough decisions. What I think this really gets down to is we still, our state is still, back in the old days, we had something called the Nevada Plan that I'm very happy that we don't do things like that anymore. But still, so much of the state's funding for education is tied to sales tax and gaming. And right now, with I don't know if you know this, but last time we looked, we're what 11 to 14% lower in tax income that comes in. That's going to have a repercussion. If the visitor volume on the strip is down, that's going to have a repercussion. And unfortunately, we still have not solved at the state level how a better way to be able to flatten out so we don't have these waves and crashes every 2-year cycle, right? We haven't figured that part out. In the meantime, we try to be responsible. Our principals try to, they're given a lot of latitude, but we still have to be responsible to the taxpayers for the money that we have in and how it gets spent. I know that's a lot of words. Do you want to add something?
No, it's a lot of words. I do thank you for your question as well. But thank you for speaking the facts you have listed here. I also heard you say being more proactive where we have so much money in the city or and working with our local businesses for their support in ways of donating to our schools. So I see that a lot. As the clerk, I get to make sure that I sign the thank you letters that go to those who donate to our schools. And I've also served on the SOTs before becoming a trustee. And so really working with our schools, I'm hoping that more businesses will look at adopting schools for those additional needs. But we just need to, we know that per pupil funding is important, and the more students that we can get into our school building, the more that our schools will have. And so attracting those families and students to come back to the district, right? We have made improvements. People do have choices, but we want to be the first choice. And so that's what we're working together as a team to make sure that we bring our families back. Someone else have a question?
Good evening, everyone. Wait.
No, I want to make sure you're ready. You good?
Oh, okay. So, you know, when I tried to come with my research, and went back, so I can pull up my receipts. Everything that everybody has said so far, I agree with, but we know that there's been this problem in Clark County for God knows how long. In my opinion, I think we need to go back and reinstate the CEOP committee, if you're familiar with that, which was the superintendent's, let me make sure I'm saying it right, the superintendent's educational opportunity advisory council, which initially it was about some of the schools in Historic was Las Vegas, but culture behind
Do me a favor and repeat the name of the committee.
It's CEOC, and it's the Superintendent's Educational Opportunities Advisory Council. And I can forward you guys the last, back in 2013, 14, somewhere. Let me go for a minute. But the bottom line is, there was an accountability measure that was in place with people sitting on a board from all over. And everything that we're talking about with adopting schools, volunteers, the NIAA, kids being expelled, like we know what the data looks like. So for those of us that are in education, we follow education, none of these conversations are new. It's a matter of what is the solution. And our county school district, staff, not you guys, not the trustees, but staff, they're making 6 figures. So you have common sense people giving them solutions to everything that we're talking about, but will they try to implement? And so I think that's a part of some of the issues that we're having, because nobody wants to take a risk, nobody wants to take a chance, nobody wants to think outside of the box, unless it's coming from them or their circle or their clique or God knows whoever or whatever. But I did want to say that everything that I've heard, I'm born and raised a native. Everything that I've heard, even with the young lady that just moved here about the summer enrichment, we call them summer enrichment programs that some of the schools have for the kids. We've had all of it. People just choose not to want to participate. It's the haves and the have-nots. You do have people who want to come in and participate and know and give of their time, but they get a lot of pushback. We have a lot of resources in the school district that are not being utilized, and I'm gonna throw one out there, not throwing nobody under the bus, but we have the Academic Support Services Center that is connected to ATEC and veterans. That center was set up for the community and for our students to help them with the proficiency exam. When you don't have staff that want to do the work, or they're not familiar with the community and the dynamics of how to go out and engage people, you have to find the right fit. And in some cases, we don't have the right fit in a lot of these positions. And so those are some of the things that need to be looked at. So I just had to put that out there. But thank you all for participating. And next time, I've got this on a Friday night. This is like really bad.
It's not really bad, it's really good. Look, we got people in the room. No, but thank you so much thank you so much for your words and your comments, and we'll look into the superintendent education advisory, opportunity advisory. We'll look into that for sure. And thank you for always speaking solutions, right? Speaking solutions and sharing resources that they do go underutilized, but it's also, we all need to do a better job of making sure that families know that they exist. So thank you for talking about the academic center, and we'll get that out to more families. I appreciate you.
I'm talking about Mr. Jackson.
I wasn't listening tonight, but the first thing,
Can you speak up a little bit?
the first thing that triggered me, I said I've been at Cheyenne 25 years, and my name is Trina Smith. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but the first trigger was we have lost more than 200 students. Cheyenne has lost over 600 students since Mr. Nunez has been here. Cheyenne's life has been sucked out of it. So I noticed, I have been in here for a while, and I've listened, and a lot of questions our students have said have not been addressed. And they have sent a lot of questions and concerns, although the flyer was not sent out. I had my PSU students, the Black Student Union, go out and advocate as they have always done. They did get the flyers out to the students, and we did have a lot of students respond. As I thought we would want to have our students' voices heard concerning what's going on in their house, in their community. Because so often we tell the students, we say this is the principal's school, and they have the discretion. And I think that is so crazy. This is the students' schools, this is the students' community, and this is their house. They have the right to say that they're being deprived of so many things, and they are at Cheyenne. And I think that the community needs to step in and come into Cheyenne and talk to these kids about what's going on in Cheyenne. Ask these kids, do they know their principal? Ask these kids, do their principal ask them who they are? How you doing today? Are you working there? Do you know your teacher? Do you know your teacher? How are your classes going? Anything about them. Anything about them. These kids don't even know who their principal is, most of them. We need to ask, why are we going through this modernization process? And the principal and all of the administrators are in the back of the school, while the staff and the students are in the building. Who leaves their staff and students unsafe in a school and say they're concerned about safety? We are in the building, and our administrator, our principal, our leader is in the back, in the portables. Who leaves us unsafe like that? I've asked the questions. I've gotten all kinds of answers. I'm asking the question again. Our students make excuses. Yes, they do. And they're children. They're children. We need to not sugarcoat stuff as we always do in the district. We have sugarcoated so many things. We had a BSU summit the other day, and our kids had an opportunity to ask questions to the superintendent. It wasn't Jones, she said someone else. That students, our students are resilient and they're smart, and nobody in the district is gonna play them down and water them down. Those kids had to ask the same question 10 times before Sharwina Thames had to get up there and say, you're not answering her question, and Sam had to get up there and try to redo it, and then I told Sam they're not doing it in the schools. We need to listen to the students and stop giving out information that's not taking place in these schools. These principals are not meeting these students' needs. They should not be in these schools if they do not have what it takes. They should not be in these communities if they do not have what it takes to take care of our babies. As I told Mr. Nunez, and I told everybody that sat in that principal seat in Cheyenne, I have been here 25 years. I am here for one purpose, and that is these students. That's the babies. And I will say it, and I will say it, and I will write, and I will write. I have tons of emails. I keep emails. I will write, and I will write. I don't hide it from Mr. Nunez. His name is on every one of them. I will write, and I will write, and I will stand, and I will advocate for these babies to know more, and I will send these BSU students out here and advocate for themselves. You stop those kids as they're trying to protest for the ICE. You cannot take their civil rights away from them. You cannot take their First Amendment away from them. You cannot threaten them. They have the right to go out there and protest. You want to keep them safe. You tell them to stand in that parking lot, but you cannot threaten them. They have the right to protest. You cannot do that to them. Stop it. Stop it. And the community needs to step in and take care of our babies. They sent questions, and not one of their questions were answered tonight. And I'm very disappointed. I am very disappointed. Thank you so much.
was a lot. I thank you so much for, your service and your commitment to students. I admire your passion. I was a student here at Cheyenne a few years ago. And I've come to visit Cheyenne since I've been a trustee, so I do know some of the construction that you speak of that has happened. And even to the concerns for the different questions, I know that some things were asked by others. And there's some things that I'm not sure if it's directly from the students, and some address the principal directly. So, yeah. And it's okay, we'll make sure we pull some of the questions here. Unless someone else asks a question, but I'll make sure that we answer some of the student questions because we have a few minutes. Oh, we got a few minutes. 9 minutes. Okay. Did anyone else have a question?
I got a question, but I thought she had one. Oh, you can go. I'll go after you. Go after me. Okay.
I'm Edwin Pacheco, and I'm here with my granddaughter. And we're going to talk about Joe Mackey. So I got 2 questions. There's a couple incidents, so I got 2. There's a tenured teacher that's in Joe Mackey, and the principal there knows that he goes after Black and brown students. It's known, right? They even have a teacher, or what is that?
Extra. Can you just tell? But they have an extra, I don't know what you call them, assistant that comes in there and sits, because this teacher is known for being, and I'm just gonna say,
prejudice. They have a teacher. But you think he's gonna act right when somebody comes in there and sits. But then he doesn't act right when they're out of there. And the students that all came together and voted to have him fight. The students have did that. And nothing, I done complained about this man, I done sent emails, I done sent something to
what's the principal?
Ms. Matthews. And even right now, he's holding her grades. Like, why would you do that? And then she went to him, and I said, Jordan, you didn't go ask him. She said, I did. And he just laughs at me. That's not right. That's not right. And you're getting complaints from other parents that are complaining about this teacher. His name is Mr. Bullock, so let's just say who he is. And then the other thing is, when you have hall monitors that are going up to female students and talking about their bras and what's underneath, I think that should be a female that goes to that student. I don't think any men should be going up to a female student and saying, that's not the right bra, that's not this. Why are we having that? And then, when she called me to tell me about it, they told him to apologize to her, and he told her, no, I will not apologize to Jordan.
Yeah. And that was Mr. Jackson that did that.
Thank you so much. I know some of these things are personnel and human resources issues, but we'll make sure that we send this through the proper channel. I appreciate you. So I was looking through, some of the questions, and like I see one that says phone policy and it just says question mark. And so I'm not sure what they're alluding to. Also, why do you only allow one open period to seniors? I'm not sure about that question either. How can we get better and healthier choices of food during lunch? Now that's something, look, now that we're aware of it, like, we can we can ask those questions to our departments. And I don't know if there were any that were specific, but there's some that's, that's directed to the principal, and I can't answer that. Like, why is he more involved in a student body and activities? So those are things like Mr. Nunez, I've met with you before, and I don't mind meeting with you again. Not here to, just attack a principal, but I am here to support him. So I'll make sure that I do a follow-up meeting for some of the questions, but there's some things that, I don't have the answers to. And yes, you may.
And I read through the questions earlier, and many of those questions that were asked are they're absolutely pertinent to the experience of the student. And what we want to make sure that we're thinking about is what the experience of students is. And there are lanes for our responsibility. And so I think Trustee Henry said earlier, we have a single employee, and we work with that single employee to make sure that the experience for our students, for our staff, for our community is strong. And so the way that we're able to do that is we're able to talk to the superintendent about what is her plan for having principal coaches, superintendents, regional superintendents work with individual schools when we hear these same type of challenges come up to us. It's not I'm not shirking responsibility, but it's not our responsibility to go and say, I'm going to go into the school level and see how this school works, because that's out of our lane, right? So we have to make sure that we give the responsibility of the superintendent and her team the responsibility to handle operational day-to-day works. So the policy thing, when you ask about, like, how do we figure out how do we go get more money? That is absolutely our responsibility to go to the legislature, share the messaging of the district, and then go advocate for more funds, so that we know that we're not going to be strapped for cash. And we still do need to let the process play out. So if we get involved every single time, every single issue, it actually is not fair for the superintendent to do their work. So what we can ask is, what is being done about this? And they then have to share with us what they are doing. Our responsibility can't be to go to every school and say, all right, Principal Nunez, I want you to change this and change that. That's not our employee. Just like I have a day job, and the CEO, the board of my day job doesn't come to me and say, well, this spreadsheet, it doesn't look right. I need you to do it a different way. My manager comes to me and works through that, right? So that's why we have these different lanes of responsibility, because we want to make sure that we're holding our superintendent accountable for all the things that are happening. And so ultimately, if the superintendent isn't doing what they need to do, two things will end up happening. Trustee Henry said, families will vote with their feet, and then we have to hold the superintendent accountable. So we're seeing students leave. Superintendent, why are we having this mass exodus of families? What's the culture and climate like inside of our schools? How do we make sure that it is better? We hold her accountable to do that. Then her responsibility is to then go and make sure that she is doing all the things she needs to do with her teammates to make sure that she's seeing the progress that she needs. We get to hold her accountable through the annual evaluation that we do. And again, it's not saying that we're not responsible for this. We are responsible for the full outcomes. Her job every day is to make sure she has the people in place, systems in place, and she's checking in every single day to make sure these things are leading to a good experience. And then we look and evaluate her on what are the long-term outcomes that are happening because of it. So she's put a plan in place to say that we're going to have a better climate and culture by the end of the calendar year. We'll say, how do we know it's going to be better? And she'll show us the metrics that they are. And then if they're not better, we can say, superintendent, you told us at the start of the year we were going to be here. We actually haven't gotten to that place yet. Why are we not in that space? And then we hold her accountable to meet that result. And ultimately, we never want to think about termination. That's not the goal of this. But that is that's our ability to hold her accountable. To say, we have a fair evaluation. You told us what you're going to do. These things aren't being met. Culture's not getting better. Academic improvement's not getting better. Operationally, we're not getting better. That's your responsibility, and then we hold her accountable that way. But going to each and every school isn't our responsibility. It's not fair for us to go and try to micromanage her work. just like Principal Nunez, while he coaches teachers, he's not going to go in and say, I'm going to teach this classroom as opposed to you doing it. That's why he's paying a teacher. He's going to allow for the teacher to do their job, and then he coaches them along the way and holds them accountable for the results that come in. And if they're not able to do that responsibility, then he holds them accountable differently. So again, not to say that we're not responsible, we have a different level of responsibility for what somebody's job is. We let the superintendent do their job, and then we certainly make sure that we are looking at the results that come from that.
Thank you so much. All right, one quick question. We got about 5 minutes left.
Hi there, my name is Belinda Strong. I'm a native Nevadan. I'm also an employee of the Clark County School District. I'm a campus monitor. I don't really speak at meetings because I get my questions answered, but I want to put this on the table. A lot of times people bring a lot of issues and there's never follow-up. I want to know, when is there ever going to be a follow-up meeting or a meeting just to address the questions? Secondly, we hear this word data. When is there going to be a follow-up meeting to the data that's been collected or to the data that's been presented to the board or whatever the case may be? Third issue, is there anything that you all can take back as far as when we have the board meetings where people can make comments on the live stream as far as being able to communicate with other people, to get information, to ask questions when they're looking at the board meetings from home? Am I on the floor? We talk about culture and climate. Every meeting that I attend, I hear each individual school talking about, staff talking about different issues. Every single school is talking about different issues on their campuses with over 360-something CCSD schools. Is there ever going to be a follow-up for people to get their issues addressed? You can only send so many emails. You can only send so many letters. You can only speak about the same thing so much. There has to be some type of follow-up to answer people's questions or the community's questions. And I live in District C. I grew up in District C. My home is still in District C. And I listen to Mr. Smith. I am an advocate for children, and I am very passionate about the safety of children. So I understood where you were coming from. I understood where Ms. Tracy Lewis is coming from, and a lot of other people in here. This week was a very rough week for me. It was an off week. My mouth was flipped, and I understand. But at some point in time, if people don't want to volunteer to be on culture and climate committees, it's time that we have to be real. And our dirty laundry for CCSD is already being aired. It's time to clean it up. At some point in time, we have to be adults and own up to what we have going on. So I don't know what you all can do or take back, but I know that the trustee works for us. She's the board's employee, not the other way around.
Amen.
Thank you so much. So the answer is that follow-up meeting, follow-up about the data. Yes, there will be follow-up meetings. I have taken notes and names, and if any of you need follow-up, please, I'll get your information, and we'll work with our board liaison to get those answered. So yes, thank you. And I know we only have a few minutes left. I do want to make sure, like 2 minutes. So I don't know if y'all see me up here shivering, and some of the questions were about, it's too cold as a school if we can't, concentrate. I have to agree. I have to agree right now. It's a little chilly, so that's something that I'll ask about. And then there was one about the wearing of head wraps or do-rags or things like that. And so I did have an email back and forth with the student and our staff, because we do have a Crown Act here, and we're just trying to make sure that we are following the law. So I will follow up regarding that question as well. That was something that was pre-submitted. So because I only have a few minutes left, I do want to thank you all for coming out on a Friday evening. I really do appreciate you all. We do. We appreciate you all for coming out. We are here, we're listening. This is our first one, and I'll make sure to do that. This is our first one, but it will not be the last. I encourage you to bring a friend next time. And if anyone wants to leave their name and number and information with us, between myself and our board office, please make sure that that happens. And we do have, I want to ask you all to complete the meeting feedback survey via the QR code or link that will be emailed to you all. And it's right there on the screen. So again, thank you for joining us. Did you have anything to say?
Just real quick, remember, there are a few things that are kind of very specific. If you do have any issues, if you do believe that there's any safety issues, there is safe voice. You know, you can have your students or you as a parent also report to safe voice in case you have any issues. And when you do report to safe voice, there is a so-called paper trail to follow. I just want to remind people of that. And from my point, thank you very much. We'll do our very best to follow up on concerns.
Okay, you said the form's not working.
No longer accepting responses. No longer accepting.
I think she just fixed it. And thanks for coming out. I think, you know, this is the way we can have dialogue. This is why people are sharing. The reason why people are getting excited and passionate. We're also passionate. Well, I know for certain we're going to make ourselves better as we work together. So thank you for joining. Excited to be able to continue to work with you and looking forward to our next one.